Let's bring in Spiked Online's chief political writer, Brendan O'Neill. Brendan, Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for coming on. Let's start tonight with the royal family's Christmas celebrations. Princess Beatrice and Eugenie were there, but noticeably absent their disgraced parents, the former Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. But it was Prince Louis who stole the show, just a boy with a very big Lindt chocolate ball. Hopefully we can show viewers a bit of footage of that in a little while. Also conspicuous in their non-attendance were Prince Harry, Meghan Markle and their two children. Brendan, I suppose like many families over Christmas, there are fallouts and splits. But what were your observations about the royals' celebrations this year?
Yeah, I think it's right that Beatrice and Eugenie were there because, you shouldn't visit the sins of the father onto the children, of course, and they have every right to be there. But the thing about the royal family's Christmas morning is that it's a very public event. People take photographs, people go to see them. So it wasn't possible for them to have Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor there, as we now must call him, because they can't have him in public because he has disgraced himself. And just last week, there were further revelations from the Epstein files, and it seems allegedly that Andrew wrote a note to Ghislaine Maxwell a few years ago asking her to introduce him to some new inappropriate friends. So, his involvement in this scandal might be even worse than some of us thought. So he really has cast a shadow over the royal family. I'm glad all of this is happening when his mother passed away, because it would have been incredibly stressful for her. I mean, these latest developments, of course. But he has kind of caused a rift in that family, and it's very difficult for King Charles, I think, to try and hold all of this together.
Yeah, it seemed like the right move to take away those titles and just increase the distance when they knew a lot worse is going to come out. And that inappropriate girls comment was shocking. I'll show people now that chocolate ball I mentioned because it was a bit strange without people giving the context. It was a large Lindt chocolate ball that a member of the public gave to Louis, and he immediately seized upon. So you can see that on your screen now. Look, Brendan, let's move on to this very powerful piece, another one that you've written for the Australian newspaper this week about the terror attack in Bondi and imploring Australia not to repeat Britain's blunders by ignoring the scourge of Islamic extremism. You say your one piece of advice for Australia after Bondi is don't do what the UK did. Don't frustrate discussion. Don't bury the truth out of a squeamish dread of social instability. Name the ideology that threatens you, shout it from the rooftops and do something about it. You reference also the ABC's Laura Tingle, who I told viewers earlier claimed the attack had nothing to do with religion, and Anthony Albanese's visible bristling whenever he's asked about radical Islam. How dangerous, in your view, would it be to continue going down the path that this country currently seems to be on?
Very dangerous indeed. And we've had a problem of Islamic extremism and Islamic terrorism in the UK for a long time, right back to 2005, of course, with the 7/7 bombings. But a really bad year for us was 2017. That's when we had the Manchester Arena bombing, and there was also the London Bridge attack and the Westminster Bridge attack. Scores of people were killed, including children, by radical extreme Islamists. And the terrible thing is we were just not allowed to talk about it. That really is not an exaggeration. We were told to grieve, to lay a flower, to sing that great Oasis song, Don't Look Back in Anger, and then just move on with our lives. We were discouraged from talking about it, even from naming the ideology. It actually became a risky business in this country to say the word Islamist or Islamic extremism or anything that seemed to suggest that these were religiously motivated attacks was completely disallowed. You would really get in trouble if you did that in public. You'd be accused of Islamophobia. That term Islamophobia was used to very strictly control what we were allowed to say and what we were allowed to think. The consequence of that is that Islamic extremism continued to grow. It continued to spread because we didn't get a handle on it and we didn't even talk about it, honestly. There was a point about 10 years ago when there were more young British Muslim men in ISIS than there were in the British Army. That's a real problem. for a country like ours. That's a problem for any country. That really speaks to the savage fraying of our social bonds. And I think we have to be able to have an honest discussion about the ideologies that threaten us. And if Australia doesn't do that after Bondi, I think it will be in big trouble.
Yeah, I think we're dangerously heading down a very similar road to our cousins over in the UK. I wanted to chat to you about a few other things, but it was just too important to get your messages out there about that. Brendan O'Neill, thanks for your time.